Hello. Hello, my name is Tucker Johnson, and I'm your host today as we experience NIMSY Live, where we talk about the latest and greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, culturalization, and all that fun stuff global companies need to delight their international customers. On this program, we invite guests who like to have fun and have some value to add for our audience of globalization professionals. I'm always eager to provide a platform to those with a good story or a good data set. So let us know if there are any topics you'd like covered or guests we should reach out to for future episodes. If you haven't already done so, now's your chance. Make sure that you are following NIMSY Insights or subscribing to us. We are coming to you today on LinkedIn. We're coming to you on X. We are coming to you on Facebook and YouTube, of course. So pick your platform of choice and go follow NIMSY Insights. You'll be one of the first people to know when we publish new live streams or when NIMSY Insights publishes new industry research. Really quickly, before we get into it today, I want to give a quick shout out to the Localization Today podcast. If you like podcasts, and why wouldn't you, because you're listening to this one, go check out the Localization Today podcast, published by Multilingual Media. It's a great resource, quick 5 to 10 minute episodes published every day, keeping you up to date on the latest industry trends. And so 5 to 10 minutes a day, it's not bad to stay up to date on everything. So without further ado, we got a lot of guests today, so I'm going to try to get into it really quickly today. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by an exceptional panel of experts who will share their insights and experiences on this exciting and rapidly evolving topic of using artificial intelligence in language services. Today, we have some experts from GLOBO. GLOBO works with clients to develop responsible AI. And they also believe that AI solutions can and will enhance the quality of language services for their clients, and they approach AI as an effective complement to human translations, not as a replacement. These are all things that we're going to dive into deeper today. As AI continues to make inroads into various industries, it is crucial for language professionals and organizations to understand how this technology is transforming the translation and interpretation landscape. Our guests today bring a wealth of knowledge and diverse perspectives to help us navigate this complex and promising field. First, I'd like to introduce, I'm going to bring everybody up on screen here and read some introductions. First, I'd like to introduce, let's go with Kristin, because she's next to me here. Kristin Hoffman, Director of Translation at GLOBO. Kristin's unique background as an attorney and her focus on serving marginalized communities give her a valuable perspective on the role of AI in document and audiovisual translation. She is passionate about leveraging AI to create positive impact while ensuring language access best practices are maintained, especially in the context of Title VI compliance and serving low-wage immigrants and migrant farm workers. Next up, we have Whitney Douglass. She is Vice President of Coordinated Services at GLOBO. Whitney brings extensive experience in compliance, quality assurance, and business development within the interpreting field. She has a keen understanding of how AI can enhance service delivery, client experience, and deaf consumer satisfaction, while also being well-versed in the challenges and limitations of AI in interpreting, particularly in the context of ASL education and medical interpreting. Next up, we have my colleague Ewandro. Ewandro, a renowned writer, former UN staff and conference interpreter. Ewandro brings his diverse experiences to the table, offering insights on the promising field of remote interpretation and how AI is shaping its future. He will share his thoughts on the potential benefits and drawbacks of AI-assisted interpretation and strategies for language professionals to adapt and thrive in this evolving landscape. And last but not least, here we have Laura Holcomb, Director at String and Can Multilingual Online, as well as a professional interpreter and interpreter trainer. Laura currently specializes in online multilingual event production, focusing on the documentary, social change, and coffee sectors. Interesting. I've never had a coffee expert on the show before, so welcome to that. Oh, but I lose myself. As an adjunct professor in healthcare interpreting at Glendon College, where she earned her master's in conference interpreting, Laura brings a unique blend of practical experience and academic expertise to our discussion. Throughout this webinar, we will be exploring ways in which AI is transforming the translation and interpretation industry, the opportunities and challenges it presents, and how language professionals and organizations can navigate this exciting frontier. Our panel will be sharing their insights, experiences, and strategies, and we will have time for Q&A at the end, probably throughout. If you guys have questions, go ahead and bring them up on screen, or I'll go ahead and bring them up on screen. You can just put those into the chat if you're over here on LinkedIn. So please share your experiences, share your questions and comments, and we can discuss those as we move forward. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation today. Welcome to the show, everybody. First and foremost, I'm not going to go around the room and ask everybody to introduce yourself because this is an hour and there's 5 of us. So let's dive right into it. But I wanted to just get some background for our audience. And Whitney, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about who is GLOBO, what is GLOBO, what do you do, who are the clients that you serve, what challenges do you solve? And I'll just turn it over to you.
All right, sounds good. GLOBO was founded 12 years ago by Gene Shriver, and his whole thought was that, we want to help people communicate when it matters most, but do it through using technology to disrupt the industry. And what's really cool about that is you never quite totally achieve it, right? There's never a point in our history where we stand on top of the mountain and look down and say, we did it. There's always more to do. There's always more to disrupt. And so that keeps all of us pretty jazzed. GLOBO works almost primarily in the healthcare sector through telephone and video remote interpreting services, translation and localization, and on-site. And one of our core values is to be a honey badger. And I could talk all day long about what that means, but if you ever interact with our staff, you'll get it right away. There's nothing that stands in the way of making a meaningful solution for a customer or an LAP person or a deaf and hard of hearing person. So that's what we're all about. We're busy over here.
And I'm curious, the honey badger, where did you get that idea? Because that is also the NIMSY mascot.
Is it really?
It really is. It has been for 7 years.
I think when GLOBO was up and coming, there was a kind of like a social media fad about a honey badger, and there was a viral video that went around about what honey badgers do, and it brought this character to the forefront. And the attitude of the honey badger is one that we want to take on and one that we do take on. So for a honey badger, no matter what's in front of you, no matter what kind of obstacles are ahead, the honey badger doesn't care. They're going to get it. They're going to get it done, get the food at the end of the day, get the thing built. And so we try to embody that.
That is hilarious. Yes, all new NIMSY employees must watch the honey badger video.
There you go. Well, so we're good friends then.
We are well aware of it. Well, thank you for the introduction to GLOBO. Laura, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is String and Can? Tell us about the work that you do.
Yeah, great. Thanks. We are a baby born of the pandemic, really. The pandemic was so hard for so many people, but I wouldn't have a career doing what I'm doing without the pandemic. So shortly before the pandemic, I, myself, and a couple of partners, we were really pushing to specialize in online, like really well done online conference interpreting services and trying to figure out what platforms were out there. This was even probably before the advent of, this was definitely before Zoom channels. And so that's what String and Can ended up, and then the pandemic came along and everyone who wasn't interested before came back and said, what was it that you were talking about? So that's what we do at String and Can, but my interpreting heart is a healthcare heart. So I started interpreting a decade in hospitals before training in conference interpreting, and then moving on to what we specialize in now, which is putting together online multilingual events.
Very good. Thank you for the introduction. Well, now that we got introductions, and you all know me, Ewandro. I'm assuming you all know Ewandro. His reputation precedes himself. He's here to provide just the industry veteran. He's here because I can talk about interpreting, but I really shouldn't. So he provides that expertise. Let's dive right into the topic. I want to talk about AI today. And really, Kristin, I think I might start with you here, because AI, when we talk about AI, there's different types of AI out there, but of course there's machine translation, and that has been around for quite some time. So what we like to say here at NIMSY is that we've been using AI in the industry for a long time. It's not something that's new. It might be new to everybody else, but it's not new to us. We've been using it for a while. So What I wanted to ask you is, as machine translation and other forms of artificial intelligence become more prevalent in our industry, how do you envision its evolution in the language services industry? What is the role that it is going to play today, tomorrow, in the future? And of course, anyone can jump in with this, but I'm going to put Kristin on the spot to start out.
Well, thanks. So first, I joined the language service industry a year and a half ago. And the first conference that I went to was Gala, and it was the same weekend that ChatGPT came out.
Oh, Lord.
And there's this whole, public intrigue with this, but like you said, it's been in translation. Machine translation's been around forever. Well, 2017, relatively speaking. I don't think a lot of customers that I work with actually understand the difference of regular TEP translation, MTPE, and full and light. And so I think we spend a lot of time currently educating customers on this. When it comes to how fast this is moving, it makes me think of the expression hurry up and wait. We get calls from companies that are ready to have a solution that involves machine translation, but they haven't even assessed their level of risk. What they might provide discharge instructions. It's a hospital that releases patients and sends them along their way, and they want those to be translated. And then they also have a text program that helps patients remember that they have an upcoming appointment or confirm, do the pre-certification stuff. And what we're doing and what machine translation is kind of how it's pushed us and how our clients have really asked about this is resulting in us playing more of an expert consultant.
Okay.
So GLOBO has embraced this for our customers, but they don't necessarily know how to use it, and they don't. They need someone to walk them through all the different options. In the future, this is kind of a loaded question.
Well, in the future, it's like if we had the future, if I knew the future, I'd be a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be running a podcast. I'd be paying someone else to run the podcast. But it's really useful, I think, to know what are clients asking for today, right? Because the clients are the ones that are driving which direction. The vendor side, GLOBO, the GLOBOs of the world may be providing the gasoline, but the clients are kind of steering the bus, so to speak.
Absolutely. And we've seen different industries approach this very differently. Like gaming industry, an early adopter to MTPE.
Yep.
Healthcare legal, obviously very significant difference in the level of risk that's going on there.
Yep.
Mistranslation resulting in harm to a patient or death of a patient is something everyone wants to avoid. But, a bug in a video game, that's going to be different. I also think, budgets take on this huge piece. And the more you're spending on your budget makes machine translation and AI seem a lot more of a worthy investment, because it is
There's more to gain.
Right. It's the decision to start adopting this is a decision to invest in a workflow that might not immediately result in the turnaround times that you think it should. It might not immediately have the impact on certain quality that you think it will. And GLOBO sees this as an investment. We see the time and energy that goes into the front part of the post-editing experience gives the idea that we can have a much stronger output as we put more time and energy into this. But in terms of how it affects our project managers and our translators, our project managers are seeing a lot more diverse workflows from within the same customer. They're getting pulled into conversations about what does this look like if we do it this way? What does it look like if we do it that way? Versus just handling multi-volume TEP projects. Our linguists, and in the US, it's common that everyone will have some kind of Spanish resource, but then after that, it's very regional depending on migrant refugee populations. So machine translation doesn't always equate to our team working on a customer account with machine translation in all of the languages. We're just maybe going to have it in Spanish, and we can't use it in all of the others. So there's a lot of variability.
Yes,
And
it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's the new tool. It's not the solution in and of itself. It's a tool to find a solution. And I'm guessing most solutions are going to be a little bit more comprehensive and multifaceted than just throwing one piece of technology at it, because it's a complex industry. So that's a really good overview of where you see from the translation standpoint. But Ewandro, Laura, let's go to interpreting. I kind of want to get some input on interpreting, because we've had machine translation around for a while, and I know there's computer-aided interpreting and stuff like that. But how do you see, with the recent developments of, or proliferation, I should say, of AI large language models, how do you see that affecting the interpreting space?
Laura, ladies first.
Oh, so
Okay.
chivalrous.
Great. I think my career really took off on the conference interpreting side after the advent of large language models. So you have so many people coming out of school, starting to specialize in conference interpreting, who actually don't have workflows that preclude it. Like they wouldn't dream of doing conference interpreting without making use of some AI leveraged tool, if that makes sense.
We
So I
have
think,
native,
and I actually came to go
like
ahead.
digital natives, so to speak. So it's like the next generation of interpreters are coming out. It's not a scary new technology for them. It's just something that they're using. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
And even I myself, I came to translation much later than I came to interpreting, and I've never translated without the use of certain AI tools.
Interesting.
So for sure. And there's a lot of comparisons made between the interpreting industry and the translation industry, and us being a few steps behind.
I would never say such a thing.
What?
I would never say such a thing on the
You would
record.
never say such a thing.
Not on the record. Where people can hear me.
As far as, just there being a machine interpreting, a ready, publicly available, accessible machine interpreting tool available. And I'm particularly one that I take comfort in the fact that translators have not been wholesale replaced at all. So in interpreting, what I would like to see is eventually the same way that coming to translation late, there's no workflow that doesn't involve some amount of machine translation, or at least a CAT tool or combinations therein. I think we're very near to seeing interpreting not involve computer assisted interpreting, which would involve AI and large language models at a minimum. And that, I think, would really, there's a lot of problems to be solved in interpreting. It's a really hard thing to deploy successfully. There are errors in interpreting that I think could be, I'm not supposed to say that out loud, I find myself saying to clients too often that there are errors. Don't forget, there are errors in interpreting. So I'm ready to see, mental loads go down for interpreters when they leverage just the cognitive load of interpreting, when they leverage, and I love all my booth mates, but my booth mates are very human. I'm a very human booth mate that may have, missed the opportunity that possibly an AI tool could grab and help my booth mate with a bit of terminology, with some proper, all of the classic conundrums that we have in fast-paced conference interpreting. And then on the healthcare side, I think, Kristin and Whitney are going to cover this really well. But as someone from the practitioner side, it's just that people need services.
Yeah.
It's just that people need services and we don't have enough people to provide those services. And of course, we have to be super careful with how we deploy this. And that's what Kristin has been speaking to as well. It's not anything is better than nothing at all. And I don't think any voices in the field would really go for promoting that. But and this isn't just in the United States. I'm based here in Guatemala. I was in Brazil before. There's need for healthcare interpreting services, but it doesn't exist. And that's a lot of because of lack of legislation, lack of budgets. And languages of lesser diffusion, really particular languages that are needed, that if we could deploy some technology to help us forward on that, I think it would be a great service to people who, no one loves being in a hospital, right? No one loves being
No, it's
sick.
bad enough, right? And yeah, people need services, which, as you point out, isn't to say that any service is better than no service, because mistakes can be made, especially in a medical place. So any technology is going to help us do more with less, I would say.
And I hope allow people to keep their languages.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So I don't want that bit of beauty to, just erode. So, Ewandro, tell me something bright.
Well, very wise words, very interesting thoughts, and with which I agree in full. Two things I want to say. First, I want to challenge the notion that machine translation is old and machine interpreting is new. I remember this must have been now 15 years ago when Skype made the first attempt live during a conference, where somebody was making a call and immediately they had somebody, I think it was German and English back in the day, and they showcased a type of speech to speech, so to speak, to everybody's amazement, except the interpreters, the German interpreters, who could find every hole in it and so on. Now, fast forward a little bit, my wife and I went to Thailand, and where the taxi drivers don't say even hello in English. So for you to be able to even find your way back, you need to have a card showing the map of the hotel, where it's located, and you show it to the guy. Only the hotel was so remote that anybody we showed the card to said, no, bye. I'm not going there, right? So I needed to strike some sort of a deal with a taxi driver. So on the way there, which took us like 40 minutes from the hotel to city center, I was busy on Google Translate, preparing a number of sentences that I wanted to play back into Thai for the driver. And when we got there, I went like this on the guy, hey, and then out came the phrase in Thai that he could hear, and the phrase was, could you pick us up here at 11:30? I'll pay you extra. What is your name? This is my number. Can I have your number? And so on and so forth. So when I call you, meet me here. That's how we survived. That is, in practice, machine interpreting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a speech to, it's speech to text, text to text, text to speech. That's what it is still today. Only technology now is advancing, latency is less, and we make believe that this is anything else. But it's actually the same kind of technology, at least so far. And which is, again, good enough. Now, a second thing it's doing, and Laura kind of touched on that, is that it's humanizing the craft of interpreting. Number one, by showing that interpreting and communication in general is a very imprecise exercise, and people make mistakes. Interpreters do make mistakes, kind of now and again. And who else makes mistakes? The speaker. Anybody who ventures into speaking will eventually make mistakes. Misunderstandings will occur. And so it's, on the one hand, bringing the cost down, making it more affordable to people who never before could try interpretation because it's still expensive. And at the same time, bringing awareness about the fact of, about what interpreting even is. So in that sense, it sheds very positive light on the interpreters who've been doing it for time immemorial without the benefit of that technology. So I see it as a very complementary set of tools, set of skills that people will have to grow into if they want to continue to do what we do for a living. I'll stop here because I tend to talk too much,
No,
and I hope I'll have other opportunities to see a few more things. So I'll stop here.
yeah, just jump on in. What I'm hearing from pretty much everybody, in one way or another, we're all kind of saying the same thing: is that AI is here, is going to help us, but it's not going to take our jobs, right? It's not not the threat that some people may think it is. And I know at GLOBO you talk about responsible AI. So first I want to ask Kristin and Whitney, what does it mean to have responsible AI as you're doing the research? Because that's what you're doing at GLOBO. You're researching this so that you can bring the value to your client, so that your clients don't have to research it for you. You can just bring them the solutions. So how do you go about research and development in this field in a responsible way?
It's a great question. We're thinking about things in terms of the quality aspect and what kind of value can we provide, what kinds of insights can we provide back to our customers and to LEPs and to deaf and hard of hearing folks. And, you ask, how do we do it responsibly? I think one is understanding what the limitations are, understanding what the possibilities are, and solutioning to them, and helping our customers understand that, helping our linguists understand that, who are actually deploying the technology. We're often talking about AI, and we talk about it in a way that presupposes that there's a negative outcome when we use it, that quality is impacted when we use it. And if I were to design that out in a math formula, it would say content plus AI equals quality, where quality is the variable that may be a positive integer or a negative integer and the thing to measure. But that would be a misplacement of quality, right? We're thinking of AI as a driver of quality, a determinant of quality. And so it moves to the other side of the equation, where it's content plus quality plus AI equals effective communication. And when we design solutions around that, that's responsible. And that takes into account the end product, mitigates the risk on the front end, thinks of the LEP person, thinks of the consumer who's actually receiving our services. And that's the name of the game for us. And so AI being the determinant of quality, the driver of quality, rather than a detractor from. And so Laura and Ewandro both talked about interpreting and what AI is going to do on the interpreting side. Every couple of months we see the headlines where someone's developed signing gloves for American Sign Language, right? I cut my teeth as a sign language interpreter, so I keep my eye on that kind of thing. But that's one side, and that makes the headlines. But what doesn't make the headlines is using AI to deliver insight for our interpreters, and that's what Laura is speaking to. Taking some of that cognitive load off so that we free up the capacity of the human brain to do even more humaning. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're designing. That's what we're deploying. So that when you're in the moment, when you're in an interpreting session, you're getting that real-time feedback about the performance of your work, or the performance of the quality of the audio call that you're interpreting on, or the performance of the speaker. Are they speaking at a level that's understandable by the LEP person? And how much cultural brokerage am I going to have to do in my interpretation? Right. And so all of those things are responsible uses of AI.
Well, what you're talking about here, and that well said, what you're talking about here is really kind of a paradigm shift for our industry, because for so long, machine translation, when those words have been uttered, they've kind of been followed up with, oh, but we don't want to machine translate that because quality isn't important. We can't machine translate medical stuff. We can't machine translate marketing material because it needs to be perfect. So for so many years in our industry, we kind of have this perception that, MT bad, AI bad, right? And you're talking about no, it's going to help us actually deliver higher quality. And so you speak about the interpreting side, Whitney. Kristin, anything to add for how AI could actually improve quality on the translation side?
Yeah, and I can't say it much better than Whitney, but I will say that um, for the responsibility part, we feel a tremendous amount of responsibility for our customers,
Hmm.
and we want to maintain trust with them, and we hold their translation memory and the data that they have already put together through whether it's hundreds of dollars only or thousands and thousands of dollars of TEP. We want to treat that with utmost respect, and we don't want to employ any kind of workflows that are going to deteriorate the quality of their translation memory, because the more volume and the more high quality volume that we put into that translation memory, the less content is going to be reliant on any kind of machine. And it, at the point where customers or industries are you go into specific machines, we don't want to deteriorate the quality of that. I mean, and it goes back into our communication, our transparency with customers. We want them to be aware of the status of technology at any given point.
Right.
So they can assume the risk. They know they're not,
It gives them the power.
it
The
gives
power's
them the
in their
power to make these
hands.
decisions.
And
And it's
power,
also,
knowledge is power,
Mhm.
right? So the
Well,
more that they know about the decisions they're making, the better they can make an informed decision.
yeah, and we're also in the same kind of vein to be responsible. We're also trying to invest in individuals and in the humans that are doing this work, and that are the true experts in the room. We're trying to enable them, so they have the tools to take off some of the more mundane work that they're doing and actually serve as that expert linguist for our clients. So I see it as a financial responsibility and ethical responsibility in terms of risk, but also as an employer, we want to keep everyone at Global happy.
Sure. Yeah. All good points. I'm going through the comments here while you're talking. I was paying attention, Kristin. Trust me. But I want to get to the comments here. Otherwise, those catch up with me, and it's hard to catch up. First of all, Francesca says, freeing up the human brain to do even more humaning. I think that was yes. I also love that comment. I'm quoting you on that from now on. But we have a question from Susanna Leig at Ewandro. I see AI as a very complementary set of tools for us humans who's in making, or maybe this wasn't a question. Sorry. As a very complementary set of tools for us human who's in it to make a living. Tucker Johnson, AI is here and will help us, but it's not going to take our jobs. Oh, she's quoting us. Whitney, how to get AI to do it the responsible way. The assumption is that quality is undermined because of use of AI, but quality plus AI becomes a more viable solution. AI is the driver of quality rather than the detractor from. So you guys are picking up on us. We got over 300 people watching us live today. So if you have any questions, then go ahead and drop them in there. Claudia says, a friend called me a few days ago. Her child was sick and she had gone to the hospital. The pediatrician could not speak Italian very well, so she called me on the phone so that I could help her. It really seems these services are missing. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you there. We need more. That's the thing. I was just on a call today with someone from a government agency that's working on a language access plan. And, I said, well, what is your challenge? I said, well, the challenge is always, there can always be more, right? You don't know where to stop. And usually the line that you draw on how much language access or how many language services to provide is usually drawn for you by someone with money, the person that signs the checks. So AI is going to not just help us improve the quality, it's going to allow us to do more with less. And I wanted to move on here, watching the time. I want to talk about bias in AI, and I want to talk about training and education of linguists. And I'll kind of lump these in here, and maybe I'll start with Laura because you train interpreters all of the time. First of all, to train the linguists on the use of AI, what are the new skills? If I'm an interpreter, I'm going through a program at a university or getting certified as an interpreter today, what are the skills that you would recommend that I focus on today that perhaps I wouldn't have had to focus on 5-10 years ago?
Great question. I wanted, if you're willing, I know I want to be sensitive to time, but I wanted to go back and wrap one thing up and then move towards new skills.
Do it.
What I noted, thank
We
you.
can
What I
we
noticed
can go
as you all
long
were
too.
talking.
It's my live stream. We can go long if we need to. It's fine.
I love it. So I really wanted to recognize, think people will lose jobs. I'm usually the one, I love that I am finally surrounded by a group of people who are really pro technology and aren't, they're not mired in fear by the technology. So I don't have to do that work today because you all are doing it for me. Normally I'm the one lifting that. I think people will, and it's not to directly contradict you, Tucker. I think it's a lot less than
No,
people.
I'm smiling. I love it
You love it. You're
because
really
it's the
good. I
truth.
love that.
Like people will lose jobs. The question is who and why, right?
Yeah, and I just want to recognize that all of us in this room, I'm going to make an assumption, we have the luxury of not being as frightened because we have very diversified skills. For people who have spent, a lifetime honing the skill of interpreting or honing the skill of translation, I think I would understand the fear completely. And I wanted to just pull in a couple of comments, though, that from what I hear from colleagues, who are those practitioners? And what I think will end up happening, a colleague I was asking about voiceover, and this colleague does voiceover, and they said, listen, with voiceover, AI has already learned to do this, that, and the other perfectly. So really what I'm finding is that clients want me to work when they actually can, that subtle difference between human and machine, that itself will become of value. It's actually, in a way, I was just musing that at some point, it's almost the imperfections or the quirks that will be revalued in the future, the same way, we know how to make furniture perfectly with machines to measure, no errors at all. But yet there are still people going and looking, they want artisan furniture. They want furniture made by hands. So I think there's a thread there. I haven't thought this through completely, so I'm hesitant to say it on a live stream, but there it is. So there's something we can meditate on. And what I hope for these practitioners who are scared, and legitimately, is that we can use these tools. We can keep wages the same or increasing as they should with inflation, but now you can do your work a lot faster. You can prep for your conference a lot faster. You can turn around that translation a lot faster, which means hopefully a net gain in the amount of income you're able to generate. As far as, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's just to back you up here. I don't disagree. Like when you say people will lose jobs, I love that because it's acknowledging a cold hard truth of the reality of the situation. But to me, it's like the question is who's going to lose jobs, and it's the people that think that they can get away with adding the same amount of value today as they did 5 years ago. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying work twice as hard, but using the tools that are available today, we can add twice as much value to our clients. And if I don't use those tools, I'm adding the same amount of value I was 5 years ago, but the person sitting next to me is able to add a lot more. So that, I think, is the people who cannot or will not utilize the resources available to them in 2024. And Ewandro was dying to jump in here.
I am, because I want to challenge Laura on one aspect of what you said.
Okay.
I didn't know this was a debate. I love it.
I feel people may lose jobs, yes, but rather than look at this as a job cutting thing, that will have as it result, job cuts. I think more than anything, this is an invitation rather than a threat to my job. This is an invitation to retool. Like if I'm a truck driver and I'm not retooling at this point, I'm already programming my own obsolescence. So I have to start looking at things in a different way. There's a lot more that interpreters are going to be invited to do than they currently do. So look at this. I'm talking to the interpreters who might be frightened when they hear something like that out there. Look at this as an opportunity to start looking out, thinking out of the box and looking elsewhere. Because again, if you take, for example, RSI as another example that kind of threatened to take everybody's jobs, because we're now being compensated by the hour as opposed to by day, by the day and so on. What I saw happen when I was with Kudo, and it blew my mind, is that you would expect India to continue to speak English. But the minute you say you can now use interpreters who are home, people say, oh, in that case, I want to speak Tamil. Well, in that case, I want to speak Hindi. So it has democratized and increased the pot, the pie to such an extent that a lot more interpreters came to the fore. So in a way, yes, it reduced opportunities to a few, to some, but it empowered people in rural Brazil, in Guatemala, in the, out of nowhere in India, who can now sit in front of a computer and service a meeting in Boston. So, and again, what AI is doing, and at some point I thought that the competition was going to gravitate there, is it's inviting people who couldn't spell interpreting to now consider adding that language mediation to a meeting that they can now afford, which again opens up the scene for more participation, more interpreting to be even offered. So I guess the net result is going to be more people coming to the banquet. Some of us will have to retool. Some of us will have to reconsider, maybe adding a new language, maybe going to a different place. But at the end of the day, I don't see this as gloom and doom, and I don't think you do either, Laura. Yes.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you can't cut it as an interpreter, you become a salesperson like Whitney. If you can't be a salesperson, you become a trainer like Laura. If you can't be a trainer, then you become a consultant like Ewandro and me, right? So the consulting space is warm, guys. The water's fine. Come on in. Anything to add, Kristin and Whitney?
Oh, it's right on. It's right on. We don't fret over what AI is going to detract from humans. We're just excited about what it's adding. And like Laura and Ewandro so eloquently said, it's just about retooling when we need to retool, but that all of these efforts, at least the way we're thinking about it at GLOBO, is that they're scaffolding around a human. It's just scaffolding around you so that we can deliver an even better product, a more real-time feedback on our performance, data that's better available for our customers in a way that's meaningful to them and a way that they can understand it, so that we maintain the expertise in language services. We know our space, and we're able to then interpret that, for lack of a better word, to our customers in a way that they can understand it, so they can perform their responsibilities in maintaining budget and maintaining efficiency. And so that's what we're excited for. Kristin, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you guys all said it well. Change is the only constant.
Amen. Amen. Well, let's move on. I wanted to talk about bias in AI, and which goes by many names. Those that have played around with generative AI have experienced this phenomenon of hallucinations, which is to say AI is not always truthful or accurate with the responses. And there are also some biases depending upon the data that you use to train the AI. And those biases can sometimes be, shall we say, not politically correct. It's particularly if not representative of minority people or cultures. Why? Because the data that it was trained on is largely reflective of the majority. So I don't really know my question here, but I wanted to talk about the bias in AI, and maybe Kristin and Whitney, some of the stuff that you guys are doing at GLOBO in your research. Oh, and I see Laura raised her hand. She's so polite. Well, let's start with Laura and give Kristin and Whitney a chance to get their story straight. But how do we deal with biases in AI, Laura?
I'm really excited to hear what Kristin and Whitney have to say, but I just wanted to cite a really surprising thing that happened the other day when I was working with a text for translation. I was actually working with DeepL, and what I got back, we tend to, our translation model is we do gender inclusive or gender neutral, however you want to look at it, translation by default without using any sort of resources from a language that aren't pre-existing. And so DeepL had actually, I think I was translating this, it might have been for an interpreting prep or something like that, but, I think most of the audience will know that, English tends to be very gender neutral by default. It's got some biases hidden in there that are kind of unexpected, but then particularly when you go into other languages, and I'll just cite Latin languages. So in this case, Spanish, you often have to choose a gender if you're going to talk about a group of people or an individual. And this thing that when it moved into Spanish, DeepL gave me back something that could have just been a generic masculine. It gave it back to me in feminine and masculine. And I was so surprised. And that must mean that there is enough people who have decided to not just say bienvenidos when talking, the masculine when talking to women and men. There's enough people out there who are wanting to, I don't know what the specific example is, but at least make women more visible in their texts. And that was reflected back to me via AI. So I just wanted, that's an example that I could cite and I wanted to give.
Great context to it as well. Kristin, Whitney?
I think that's an awesome story. We are still very much humans in the loop with our translation department. So what I think will continue to happen as humans are involved in this process is we'll be listening to not only our staff of translators and editors, but the type of feedback that we get from our customers. So utilizing AI for additional feedback means that we can get really quick issues resolved and then corrections made, which go back into the system. And I'm really hopeful that all of this will get the AI or that bias that exists inherently with humans can be at least identified and understood in the machine context. And as long as we keep humans in, I think we're more apt to kind of see a different perspective. But Whitney, I don't know if you have anything on the interpreting side.
That was great. We talk about, you said, humans in the loop, and that's kind of the most important part for us is that they stay in the loop. So whatever output, AI is not a robot gone rogue. It's not something that's generating its own ideas and is spitting out its
Yet, I'll just say, yet.
Yeah. Okay. So, but it's not. It's not.
I know.
Generating information and generating translations from content that a human initially put in. And so when the product comes back out, it then goes through another round of human post editing that feeds back into the TM, which goes to the MT. And so there are a number of opportunities to catch that kind of thing. And I hadn't heard a story like that yet, Laura. I'm glad you brought that up because that's an example of something going right. And we're excited to hear, more about that. And that's it. It's human in the loop. And that's what feeds all of the input and then controls the output.
And Laura, you don't have to keep raising your hand. Just jump in.
Just jump in. Monopolizing.
Do it. Take it over.
It just occurred to me what a important mirror AI is. It's not like this has never been said before. For us seeing our biases, we should thank it for that. And, even though the not yet comment, but Whitney, I think, that's absolutely right. For right now, it is us, and it is us feeding into AI. And so if we can further democratize and be more inclusive about what we do with language, it'll show up in AI. as it's structured now, as I see it. And then I did want to address, for any interpreters who are on here, what do you need to be learning? Definitely platforms the same way translators, a translator needs to know about CAT tools. Interpreters will, as they start creeping out there, need to know about CAI tools, so computer assisted interpreting tools. How to prep vocabulary so that it'll be prompted for you when you need it, the same way a term-based functions in a CAT tool. And basic, and this is where my heart hurts. There are people who feel like it's too late sometimes to learn because tech is a language. And so, if you think about trying to add German when you're 65 or something, I mean, like you could become conversational, but it's really hard to get there. And so, yeah, it's true. Younger digital natives, they have a big advantage, but yeah, just understanding how how windows are arranged on a screen and where to get to your settings and all of these things. Like I who organize teams and hire interpreters to do remote work, and yes, remote work has hugely benefited me, and especially as the mother of a small child. There are just things that wouldn't be possible for me without that. As all the parents of the world try to figure out how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
I now have the option of doing work without continuously traveling and being, which would have had me probably would have had me leaving the industry.
Yeah.
So I just want to circle back around, and Ewandro helped. I wanted to speak to the hearts of people who are worried. Ewandro helped move it back, where I try to reframe over and over again. And then I think people are already, in the interpreting programs that I'm familiar with, people are really making an effort to make sure that graduates have these skills that they need to make their work easier. I know that in interpreting, for example, what people are already doing, we get a video sent to us last moment. It's really hard to do a video in conference interpreting without any prep. And, you either need to be a not perfectionist, which is why conference interpreting is very hard for me, because I didn't fall on that side of the scale, and you just need to go for it with a lot of intuition. Or what you can do is you have your 5 minutes, you take that video, you machine transcribe it, you machine translate it, and then you post edit on the way out as you're delivering it. And so that's kind of where I see the future of interpreting going, is that we're using tools to almost be like post editors.
Yeah. That's good. It's a good comparison.
Now, can I address a bias by AI itself, by the bot?
Yeah.
Because when we think about bias, we think about humans, right? But AI is very cocky. Right? Number one, it thinks it gets it right every time.
Lie
right?
to your face and
yes,
proudly.
and think that they can
No
get away
shame.
with it every time. Right?
And then you call it out. You're like, I don't think that's correct. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
completely made that up. Like,
So you see, you don't usually think of interpreters as humble individuals, but as you were performing
said it.
in the booth, you have, it's almost an obligation that you self-doubt every word that comes out of your mouth, because it might be the right one and it might not be. AI doesn't do that. It will give you whatever it thinks is right and so on, and it will give it to you for the rest of those 20 minutes until the meeting is over. An interpreter doesn't do that. The interpreter learns as they go. An interpreter learns as he or she goes. And that's one ability that we have to teach the machine. And the only people who can teach the machine that are interpreters. So that goes in the direction of retooling. So find a way to be useful if you want AI to benefit you in ways that it doesn't benefit you now. Also, one big, great ethical use of AI is to, again, provide terminology corrections for interpreters, provide confirmations of numbers and titles and names, comparing to what has been said before, comparing to what is in the terminology list that has been uploaded, and checking back, if you're talking about healthcare, when it's talking to, say, a patient, comparing to what is already in the medical records of that person to see if what you're saying makes sense, kind of trying to instill that self-doubt a little bit into the system so that you don't schedule the meeting for, the visit for the wrong time, or you're not talking to somebody about operating the wrong leg, right?
Yeah.
So these are things that eventually, I guess, will find their way into the system. But linguists are necessary to make that happen. And one final thing I want to say is the whole concept of quality, right?
Oh, here we go.
Quality, again, not all meetings are made the same. Not all clients are made the same. The other day, a colleague of mine was fuming because they were standing by at a machine interpreting episode of some sort, and they sent the client a note to say, "I'm sorry, you don't realize, but the machine is only getting 60%. And back came the response, "We're fine with 60%. This is going great." So we tend, because we are perfectionists, as Laura said, we tend to believe that perfection is the aim. No, good enough is the aim. And good enough is good enough, right?
Everyone who works in medical interpreting just had a mini heart
attack. It's very
attack.
humbling. It's very humbling in a way.
I think we get what you're saying.
Hand, but anyway, good.
All good points. We're coming up on the hour here, but I want to go back to the chat really quick because I think this would be a good thing to end on here if I can find it. Susanna, you win the prize for most involved here. And you had a question other than, if I can find it, Susanna. All right, here we go. And directed at Kristin, but I want to open this up to anybody. How can AI help translate? Oh, where was the question here? She said, okay, so Kristin said, how can AI help translation? I am not so clear as to how AI can help translators earn more. In the 1.5 decades that I've been in translation, the rates they pay me have not risen, even when I ask for a raise, disencouraging me to do more translation. She's talking about translations. That's why I interpret more than just translate, even though I am one of those folks that can do both. How can AI help us translators be better paid according to what we are worth? That's a good question, because we've kind of, I think, covered that for interpreters. Like, oh, we're pretty good for interpreters. How can AI help translators be paid more in line with the value that they're adding?
I love that question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tucker, you've talked a lot about in past shows, I guess, about price points. What are we talking about? Pricing models for machine translation. When will there be a shift? I do know that customers continue to want predictability. But what we see, aside from word count, is we see a lot of editing, revamping work. We see per minute rates with transcription, voiceover. And what I see in terms of language access in the United States that's ultimately growing with technology is that we're going to be translating more and more content and in more complex formats, websites, voiceover. And I think those all, when you move away from the per word rate, you can ultimately come to some other type of payment system, whether you're doing it hourly as a reviewer or you're consulting with someone. But I think you have to look at it through a different lens. Am I going to offer the same services and just more and have the same, the same pay for that service? Or am I going to offer more value to customers? And at least, I think creativity is really something that can go into this, and I'd like to see more people make movements on pricing. We've got customers that really want a lot of changes in the system to be able to leverage this technology. If we can get them to change their process, we can probably get a lot more business in the United States, specifically on translation. But I'm interested to hear what other people have to say about this too.
Yeah, me too. And I'm sorry.
all great points, but very objectively, there's one thing that AI allows you to do as an interpreter. I'm sorry, as a translator, just work 10 times faster.
Oh,
If that
yes,
doesn't translate
obviously.
into more income for you, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And as far as interpreters, one thing AI allows you to do is to double dip, triple dip, even if the pay is lower than what a full day would be. When you stack it up, 1 hour here, 2 hours there, 3 hours there, in the course of a day, if you have enough marketing skills to cram all those assignments on a given day, that's a lot more money in your pocket anyway, right? So will that happen to everyone? No. Is that a possibility? Yes. So if we're looking at the negatives, we have to look at the positives too.
Good point.
Laura, you raise your hand. All eyes are on you now.
Okay.
I'll just put her on screen, make her talk.
All right, let's talk. There's a couple of things I've noticed that. Yeah, I just thought the other day, like, wow, it seems like market rates in translation are still about the same per word price that they were, 10 years ago. So this is a real thing. I mean, yes, I think what Ewandro said is, and that's what I was trying to point to earlier, is about how you can work faster. And so hopefully it translates into more money. This isn't necessarily AI, but, and I'm verging into interpreting a little bit, but the way that globalization and remoteness, the ability to work remote, helps us match skills better. Does that make sense? So you can do things you're better at.
It does,
You can access
because
rather than just being the local person at the local shop who has to learn everything from zero all over again.
and that's for
I think
all
yeah.
industries, right? That's not just us, but globalization has really helped us with that. If you have run I don't know, let's say a industry magazine business in Sandpoint, Idaho, and you're no longer, in this day and age, you no longer have to hire people in Sandpoint, Idaho. You can hire people in South America, and you do just as fine. I use that as an example because I'm going to Sandpoint, Idaho later today. But yeah, it helps qualified people find the jobs that they're qualified for, and it helps employers find qualified people regardless of where they're located.
Yeah, so you don't have to study up on, every time on a new subject if you're an interpreter or even a translator. You can go straight forward. And then the final thing that I was thinking about is I'm the director of a business, but sometimes I'm not the greatest business person, because I'll have clients come to me and say, like, this is what we need. How would you handle that? And so I come back and actually like tee up a machine-based solution for them. And they don't want, they don't want it, or they don't want to do it themselves.
Right.
They want me to do it. So
Yeah.
that points to what Kristin was saying, as far as like changing the model of what you're actually being paid for. And in my case, it's you're being paid to know how to correctly deploy the tool, with oversight and all the human knowledge you've acquired over your whole lifetime to keep it on the tracks.
I still remember, those in this industry may know Vincent Swan. He's at Scientific now, I believe. I remember a quote from him 15 years ago. We were sitting at dinner, and he says, "I want to get paid for what I know, not for what I do." And that stuck with me ever since, right? So my advice to anybody, not just translators, but figure out a way to get paid for what you know, for what your experience and expertise is, rather than the number of words that you can cough out in an hour. And I think, Whitney, I'll give you some space here to wrap us up. If you had any thoughts.
Sure. Well, it was just a refreshing call, because we hear so much fear mongering about AI, and it's so nice to be in the company of professionals who've got years and years of experience behind them and foresight for the future, and to hear we're all kind of on the same page, that this isn't something to be feared. This isn't something that's going to take us all out of the workforce, but something that we can embrace, a new set of tools that we can learn how to employ and should be learning how to employ now. That way they're not prescribed to us going forward. even if you don't have your hands yet on a machine translation, or you're not yet using AI in your interpreting work, where else can you use it so you can start to get more comfortable with the performance of the tools that are out there? ChatGPT, for example, download it, get the app, figure out how it works and what its limitations are, and use it in ways that are easy for you to integrate right now, so that whenever these big shifts come in the industry, you're ready and prepared. And I think that's encouraging to all of us. Just looking forward, it's encouraging. We've heard today nothing but good news, right? Ability to make more money, ability to perform even higher. So exciting day.
I second all of that. And I know we're over time. Hey guys, if you're still listening to this, you might be 6 minutes late to your next meeting because we've gone over time. But thank you for sticking with us. I want to give a chance, particularly Kristin and Whitney. How can people find out more about GLOBO? Where do they go? Who do they contact?
Great. Yeah, we'd love to make your acquaintance. You can find us at HelloGlobo, GLOBO.com, and then reach out to us there. So you'll easily navigate to our career opportunities, our linguist opportunities, and you can find Kristin and I both on LinkedIn too. We'll be happy to talk with you.
Great. And Laura, same question. String and Can. Where do we find you?
Yeah, there you go. stringcan.online. We're a different setup than what the amazing work that you all do. We're the unscaled version. We're the post AI artisan version. But no, who are making really really important use of AI tools from the get-go. So yeah, if you need anything, we're here to support you, including that practitioners who are looking to understand a little bit more about tangibly what they can do. We love supporting with that as well. So
I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I think I will. Oh, Ewandro, of course, has one more thing. Ewandro, you got the
Of
stage.
course, Ewandro can't stop talking.
Go for it. That's why you get
I
paid
just
the big
wanted
bucks.
to applaud and commend GLOBO for looking at AI responsibly, especially considering that they are heavy on healthcare. Most of the people who consider the use of AI in healthcare only think about gadgets and the next thing that you can stick in your ear, and that's not the way to go about it, right? So I think it will give us all more results, even if the conclusion is, oh, you know what, AI sucks, let's not use it. But in the process, you're going to do a lot more for your clients and any potential client by discussing it and positioning yourselves as you are doing as a thought leader in the field, than just trying to come up with the next big thing that gets the shares to the share price to rise and then maybe fall. We don't know. So I just wanted to give my kudos to everybody here who represents GLOBO. That's all.
Well, thank you very much, Ewandro. Yeah. So I will take us out just to reiterate that GLOBO works with clients to develop responsible AI solutions. These are my 3 takeaways from today that I wrote down during the call. They work with their clients to develop responsible AI solutions. They believe that AI can and will enhance the quality of language services for their customers. And lastly, they're really taking this approach where they view AI as a complement to human translation rather than a replacement. If I got any of those wrong, I'm sure they'll correct me in the comments section. But if you want to hear more about GLOBO, reach out to Kristin, reach out to Whitney, check out their websites. Same thing with Laura and String and Can. So with that, I will wrap us up here today, ladies and gentlemen in chat. We are out of time for today. If you enjoyed this NIMSY Live experience, make sure that you are following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, X, all of that stuff, so that you'll be first to hear when we publish new episodes. We had over 300 people join today and stick with us for the hour. Yeah, that was, that's like in our top 5 as far as podcast attendance goes.
That's a testament to your great MC.
If that were
Somebody
true,
had to
every
say it.
podcast
Hey,
would be 300.
somebody
Wow,
had
you
to say
just woke up and put your kiss ass hat on today, didn't you, Ewandro? I love it. I appreciate our guests, Whitney, Kristin, Ewandro, and Laura. Go follow all of them on LinkedIn. They're good follows. I appreciate my colleagues here at NIMSY Insights doing all the hard work so I can have these interesting conversations. And finally, I appreciate you, the audience, all of the chatter in chat, all of the questions, comments, and appreciations. And I look forward to next time. Cheers.
Thanks.